Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the number one way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
Hey, welcome to Wait, That Really Happened, a podcast covering history, true crime, and conspiracy. The bevy for the epi is making me a little sad today. I made chai tea earlier. I love tea. And I thought, I will be, not wasteful and I'll just reuse the tea bag. Not a good idea. The tea just kind of looks like slightly muddy water. So I'm going to drink it. I'm not going to waste it, but I'm not going to be happy about it either. Today, I actually fully meant to do a different topic that I've been researching for a couple of weeks. It's about a secret society, but this topic came across I believe it was my TikTok, and I was really intrigued, and there has been a lot of social media conspiring, and I just wanted to kind of get to the base of all the facts for my own opinion, as you all should do when you see something that, is eye-catching on social media. Look it up, find out for yourself. And I just learned a lot, and I think that a lot of it is really important and just goes to general safety. So that's what I'll be covering today. This is a bit of a misleading title for this episode because of the nature of these cases, which obviously I will get into. But for the purpose of somehow titling this episode, we are going to be looking into the alleged possibility of, however else you want to phrase it, the Brooklyn Creek Killer. On June 16th, 2023, 27-year-old Carl Clemente's body was found in Newton Creek in New York City. On August 1st, a second body, the body of 27-year-old John Castick, was pulled from the waterway. On July 30th of this year, a third body, that of 30-year-old Damani Alexander, was pulled from the creek. In all three cases, foul play is not suspected. I am neither going to agree or disagree with that official statement, but I am going to relay all the events leading up to each disappearance and discovery of the bodies, and then give my thoughts. The first thing that we need to establish is the history of the setting, which is the Avant Gardener, which is a nightclub. The Avant Gardener has two sections, so it's the more outdoor Brooklyn Mirage, and then the Avant Gardener is like a warehouse. The music venue has been established since 2008, going through multiple closures and reopenings. It is well known due to its size and the recreational drug and alcohol use that occurs within its walls. Julia Gomberg over on You Had to Be There does a great breakdown of the experience of going to concerts at the Avant Gardener. So if you want a detailed description by someone who has actually been there, I highly recommend that episode. I'm just going to give a quick summary of how it's set up as a venue. There are 3-ish levels of security. So you go in and they check your ID to make sure you're 21. There are entrance metal detectors and a pat down that they do. And then you deposit your phone and other items into bins. From different Reddit posts that I've read, it can take up to 30 minutes to actually get through security. So it's very tight. But while security tries to be very attentive and thorough and searching for drugs and other substances, plenty of drugs make it into the venue, and many people find that to be one of the bigger appeals of going to the venue. The Avant-Gardener has some incredibly sketchy history in general. Between 2018 and 2022, 1,600 people required medical attention while in attendance at the venue, and 88 of those ended up in long-term hospital care. 3 deaths connected to drugs consumed at the venue have caused Avant-Gardener to almost lose its liquor license, and there is a report of a woman having been drugged and sexually assaulted while she was coming out of consciousness from being drugged. Avant-Gardener has paid $100,000 in penalties when the State Liquor Authority, or SLA, charged the venue with 23 disciplinary charges. The venue is located smack dab in the middle of an industrial area with a Cooper recycling plant, a scaffolding store, a lumber yard, the New York City Department of Sanitation garage, and a concrete supplier are among the many businesses in the surrounding area. Reading different articles, it sounded like the water was basically in the backyard of the Avant-Gardener and Brooklyn Mirage, but looking at a map, it is a solid couple of blocks away and probably about like 10 to 12 minutes, which will be important later. Willis Elkins, member of the Newton Creek Alliance, stated that it does highlight a little bit of the lack of investment in the waterway. We hope that there is investment from the city in improving surrounding areas. State Senator Julia Salazar said, "The least we can do is make it safer in general to be in the industrial business zone in the dark. How are we responding to the proliferation of nightlife? How are we responding to the How are we responding to the proliferation of nightlife in this area? How are we adapting to it? It's not going to work to not have an organized response and a way of managing it." New York City Council member Jennifer Gutierrez stated in a live interview, "We have nightlife and we want people to come here and have a good time, but we also want them to get home." All of these quotes to say that these cases have highlighted a really important issue of how dangerous it is to be a person out alone at night. There's a lack of lighting, lack of proper safety precautions in the industrial area, and a lack of security measures that could protect inebriated concert goers from getting into unsafe situations. Another really common issue and occurrence of this venue is fake taxi drivers. So these are people who will drive up and pretend to be taxi drivers or like Uber drivers, and they just ask you to pay them via Venmo or cash. And they know that everyone coming out of there is drunk or on drugs or both or inhibited in some other way, and it is just incredibly dangerous. So you can kind of see what we're working with. Everyone is aware that this is not the safest place and is aware that improvements should be made. Have they been? We'll talk about it later, but let's get into the cases. And I just want to say really quickly, none of this is meant to shame anyone who uses or has used drugs and alcohol in the past or now. You do you, but it is a plea for those who do use to just be careful, be aware, don't go anywhere alone at night, and always have backup plans. The first body to be found in this series of events was that of Carl Clemente. Carl was born in the Bronx. He was extremely talented at playing the guitar and was also a composer and played in a band around the city. His day job, which he loved dearly, was working as a clinical case manager at the Advanced Care Alliance of New York. The night of June 11th, 2023, around 10 p.m., Carl was actually turned away from the Mirage because he had supposedly been consuming too much alcohol to be allowed to enter. Surveillance footage was found showing him walking toward a gas station, though others show him running up Metropolitan Avenue and disappearing into a lumber yard. So I'm not really sure which is which. But this is his last confirmed sighting. I would also like to say that I never found any of this security footage, so I'm assuming it hasn't actually been released, so I'm not totally sure where that information came from. He was missing for 5 days before police found his body floating in the English Kills, which is an offshoot of Newton Creek. A worker of the lumberyard found Carl's wallet and mailed it to Carl's parents, which they received a day prior to the police discovering his body. That detail leads me to believe that he was running up Metropolitan Avenue and disappeared into a lumber yard. Yeah, again, I'm just not sure where that information came from, but the wallet was mailed the day before. Initial police response to this case was slow, and in general, there has been very little informative communication between the police and Carl's father, Alexander Clementi. The police do not believe that there was any foul play, but Alexander thinks otherwise. He said this in an interview with ABS-CBN News. "There's a camera there. Why couldn't they take the camera and show what happened here? They recovered his, Carl, remains here. My question is, shouldn't they have seen what happened and why he fell? Did he accidentally fall? Did somebody push him? We don't know because they're not sharing it." In another interview, "I will accept that it was an accidental death. Okay, he fell in the water. But what caused it? Why was he running? It's like a movie. There's no such thing as a movie where it's the beginning and the end. You have to see the whole movie." Alexander recalled very little respect being shown to his son's body, as it was simply placed on a ledge, not in a body bag, after it was recovered by police. At his funeral, some 200 people showed up to grieve Carl Clementi. Alexander is working tirelessly to keep his son's name in the front of New York City's mind as other headlines try to drown out the tragedy that occurred. So already in this single case alone, you can see that there's a lot of different possibilities, but also a lot of events that are cause for question. What Alexander was referring to when he said he fell in the water, there is a bridge on Metropolitan Avenue, which I'm assuming is where it is assumed that he fell off of. And then, as Alexander said, why was he running? It's again assumed that he was running from something. Carl Clementi's name had barely seen the light of a news outlet until the discovery of a second body, that of John Castick. John was also 27 years old, born December 13th, 1995 in Illinois. He was living in Lower Manhattan and worked at Goldman Sachs as an analyst. His close friend Sarah Costeca described him as charismatic and high energy, with a good sense of humor. She said in a quote to the New York Post, "Whatever happened, he did not deserve this." Eamon Stetson works in sales and had crossed paths with John while they were both on a kickball team together 2 years prior. He said about John, "He loved everybody and everybody loved him. I haven't met a single person that didn't have a good time with John or want to be like John. Everybody loved him." On August 1st, 2023, around 11 a.m., a man reported seeing a bloated, shirtless body floating face down in the English Kills. The body had no obvious signs of trauma besides drowning. To this day, the police have not yet released or found the reason for why he was found shirtless. There was also a Redditor who said that he was seen on surveillance video briefly getting into a car and then leaving it, but I didn't see that reported in any official news outlets, so we will take that information with a pebble of salt. A friend had called John's roommate around 5 p.m. on Saturday, July 29th, asking if he had seen him. When his roommate went to check, he couldn't find him. The concert that John had attended was at 8:30 the Friday night before at the Brooklyn Mirage, and John had reportedly left the venue at 2:30 a.m. on July 29th. His phone pinged at 3:51 a.m. on the Metropolitan Avenue Bridge. Where he was from when he left the venue at 2:30 and when and why he ended up shirtless at the Metropolitan Avenue Bridge are all still unknowns. Security camera footage did show him walking steadily down a sidewalk as he left the venue up Stewart Avenue. I actually kind of dissected the very limited security footage that is available to the public and found the spot shown in the footage based off of a distinct piece of graffiti in the background. The main goal for me in this was to see what direction he was walking when he left the Avant-Gardener, and he did appear to be walking towards the direction of the creek. There is a bus stop about 7 minutes from the Avant-Gardener, and it is a good block at least over from the east branch of the creek. But again, he ended up near the Metropolitan Avenue Bridge, so it's in the wrong direction. I guess unless he was going to a different bus stop or if he lived nearby and was just walking home. But he essentially passed 3 bus stops if that were the case. So I'm not really sure how that works. It's also hard because we don't know if these three men were going to be taking cars, if someone was picking them up, which I don't think any of them were getting picked up by like a friend, or if they were taking the bus or a ride share. John had been missing for 4 days before his body was found. His death was also ruled as an accident, and his phone and wallet were found with him. John's father said he was so smart, but in the end, he did something dumb, and it cost him. We think he might have been impaired. We do not know, and it was just a lapse of judgment. In an article that came out very recently, it states that his family believes he died due to his peanut allergy, which may have been why he wasn't feeling well, so he left early and alone from his group. That didn't feel right to me. I don't know how you might feel about that, but I feel like he would be panicking if he was having an allergic reaction. So I don't know if that piece of information is entirely true because I only saw it in one article, but I don't know. That doesn't hold a lot of weight for me. Due to the extremely similar circumstances of both cases, despite them both being ruled accidental drownings, the cases remain open, though the cops are treating them more like coincidences rather than connections. Unfortunately, it seems that Clemente's case only reached the limelight because of its eerie similarities to John Castick's case. Alexander Clemente noted this in an interview. If they gave my son the same media attention as this John Castick, Castick could still be alive today. Why did you have to wait for a second person to die? This brings us to our third victim, who was found July 30th of this year, Damani Alexander, age 30 at the time of his death. Similar to the previous victims, he disappeared a few days, 2, before he was found. His body washed up on shore in the same branch of the Newton Creek and was found to have no signs of trauma or violence. The differences between these cases are notable. For one, as far as I could find, there is no surveillance footage that is at least public of Damani at any point after leaving the knockdown venue. Second, the venue itself. John and Carl had left from the Brooklyn Mirage, while Damani left from the Knockdown Center, which is actually farther away from the Newton Creek and the Brooklyn Mirage Avant-Gardner venue. The creek is actually about a 10-minute walk in the opposite direction from most public transportation sources that you would assume one would take leaving the knockdown venue. A third and incredibly disturbing difference are the text messages sent by Damani to a friend right before he disappeared. There is not really an image or a transcript of the text yet, as this is an ongoing investigation, but there was a screenshot shown on News 12, and you can kind of tell that there has been a longer conversation going on where Damani is not in a safe situation. So the full extent of the text that we can see go as follows. The first message was sent at 10:19 p.m. Sunday night from Damani's friend. What's happening? Damani, 5219 Flushing Avenue. I think dude's trying to kill me. His friend, I'm coming. Why? What's the problem? Damani, Knockdown Center. His friend, what's happening? Tell me so I know. What's the situation? Damani, dude's waiting for me outside. That's all of the texts that are available to the public currently. Medical examiner has yet to determine the official cause of death for Damani. In the other two cases, I believe Carl's was ruled an accidental and John's was accidental, unconfirmed. Damani's mother, Desiree, firmly believes there was foul play involved. It was incredibly heartbreaking to listen to Desiree's interview with CBS. She said, holding back tears, I feel like he is still alive even though he is gone. We know he is gone. She says, the police said they found him floating in the water, but there is no foul play. There is no blunt trauma. There is no marks of violence. And I said, how can that be? Damani is a person who knows how to swim. City Councilman Robert Holden said to CBS, you have one or two, yeah, but when you have three, now we're seeing an alarming pattern. We need better lighting there, but should also, if we're going to open up clubs, we got to put up fencing so people just don't fall into the creek. obviously these texts are incredibly disturbing and have been the primary spark that caused this outpour of sudden social media conspiracies. A user posted under the Reddit thread titled, "Do we have a serial killer?" Right. He was so intoxicated that he passed out, yet was able to walk 10 to 15 minutes to an opening in the creek, but was also so intoxicated that he fell over a barricade and forgot how to swim, but also got these texts off without a single spelling error. It's just fishy given the number of similar deaths and the location and demographic. So that is all on the cases and their information. So now we're going to get into theories, and I want to be very clear that these theories are opinions. We don't have all the facts, and we simply may never really know. Remember that these are real people, and something absolutely horrific happened to them, and they were taken too soon. Based on the title of this episode, it is the wide assumption that there is a new serial killer in Brooklyn. The demographic of the men being found, late 20s and 30, all disappearing for a few days or post-attending a concert at a venue in the industrial area, and being found with no blunt trauma or marks of violence in the same East Branch of the Newton Creek. If this were the case, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but if it were, the timing makes a lot of sense to me, because if a case picks up too much attention, for example, Castick's body being found in a similar manner to Clemente's only a few weeks apart, and people are kind of seeing the similarities, it would make a lot of sense for a serial killer to wait for the media buzz to fade before choosing another victim. Of course, Damani's texts are also very alarming in the way that he felt he was in danger and there was a specific person causing that sense of danger. The other thing I thought of was for John, if he was walking to the bus stop, which we obviously don't know if he was, he would have had to walk past a few bus stops to actually end up near the bridge where he could fall off and in. Again, I will say there is no evidence to assume that there is a serial killer besides the eerie coincidences that have occurred. Damani also could have been the outlier in that he did encounter someone, but that same someone may not have encountered John and Carl. The other theory is that drugs, alcohol, other substances, or external factors were related to the deaths, which is unfortunately a true possibility. We have no idea what they consumed the night they disappeared. My only caveat to this possibility is that Damani coherently texted with no spelling mistakes. John is seen walking casually down the street, not stumbling around, and Carl seemed to be running from someone. As spoken by numerous officials, it's an industrial area not equipped for the safety of intoxicated citizens at 3 a.m. trying to get home. There's a lack of streetlights, fencing, and safe, dependable transportation that a lot of things could have contributed to the death of these men. The Avant-Gardener did used to provide a service where security would be posted all the way up to nearby bus stops, but they stopped providing that service due to the expenses. 3 people have died as a result of overdosing while in the venue. There is also a great lack of cell service, and as I mentioned earlier, fake Uber and Lyft drivers and unlicensed cabs. The Avant-Gardener also notoriously sells tickets way over the legal capacity of the venue, which many people are upset about and point out, and there's just no way to be properly equipped for that many people to safely all get home. One other thought from me is, if these are all accidental, why has there been nobody else? Why are there no women? Why are they only men who have been in their late 20s and 30? Why isn't there anyone older? Why isn't there, women who are younger? And I'm not saying that I want that to be the case. Obviously, I do not want that to be the case. But if it was just that there was simply a lack of security or safety precautions like fencing, you'd think that there would be a little bit more of a difference in the people being found in the river. You know what I mean? So that's just another thing that I've been thinking about. The Department of Transportation has begun repaving some of the roads near the venue, as well as installing better lighting around the streets. Supposedly, many venues have implemented new safety policies in the area, but those were not detailed anywhere. That is all I have for this case. I hope that if nothing else, these stories are a warning to young people who go out to clubs. Go in groups, be smart, don't leave alone, and don't let anyone else in your group leave alone. Be careful with what and how much you consume, and always let someone outside of your group know where you are. A friend, your parents, your roommate, just so that someone who isn't in the venue also knows where you are. I hope that these families are able to find closure in the cases of their loved ones, and that further safety measures are implemented so no other family has to go through what these three have. Similar to the previous episode, I think it would be inappropriate to end with a Reddit post reading, so I will leave it there today. If you have any cases, conspiracies, or historical moments you want covered on the pod, feel free to leave them in a comment on Apple or Instagram, or email me at wtrhappened@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at thesocialbutterflywtrh for images of each podcast episode as well as podcast updates. Thank you all so much for listening and have a great rest of your day.